The photo hit my phone while I was rinsing a coffee cup in the kitchen. One buzz. One careless mistake from Graham Alder. First, I saw wine, candlelight, and Celia Bramwell leaning across the booth at the Alden room like she had earned the room. Then I saw the brass key tag beside her glass. My sponsorship code engraved along the bottom. Under the photo, before he deleted it, his message read, "Make sure she never sees this table." I did not call him, and I did not zoom in hunting for pain. I knew that booth because I had reserved it for authors, attorneys, founders, and people who understood private rooms run on trust before money. Celia wore the temporary guest card only my approval could create, and Graham was smiling like my access had become his property. The dinner was not just an affair. It was my name around another woman's neck. His call came within a minute. Too fast to be innocent, and too soft to be casual. Phone glitched, he said, laughing at the edges, trying to make a mistake sound technical. I dried my hands, looked at the brass tag, and answered before he could build another lie. I saw my code. Graham. And the silence after that was cleaner than anything he had said all week. He started with my name, low and careful, the way men do when they want a woman to carry their panic. I ended the call before he could turn my calm into permission. Then I opened the old email from Arden Pike, the general manager I had tried not to believe. His warning was only 4 words. "This one looks personal." Attached beneath it was a reservation note tied to Graham, Celia, and a guest category neither could use without me. I read it twice because proof weighs differently when it stops asking you to feel and starts asking you to act. For the first time, I was not wondering where my husband had gone. I was staring at the door he had opened with my key. I started with the things I was allowed to see. Not because I wanted to play detective, but because Graham had dragged my work into my marriage. Guest usage, dining category, sponsor notes, reservation requests. All the quiet little records that kept the Alden room from becoming just another expensive restaurant with better lighting. His name appeared more than once, always near Celia Bramwell, always wrapped in language that sounded harmless until it repeated itself. A one-time misunderstanding can look messy, but a pattern has a spine. The first reservation note called her a magazine contact. The second called her a prospective partner. And the third used my name like a hand on the door. I sat at my dining table with the laptop open, reading each line while the apartment stayed so quiet I could hear the refrigerator click on. Graham used to come home smelling like smoke, citrus peel, and old wood, telling me tasting rooms ran late and clients liked privacy. I had believed the shape of his excuses because I did not want to become the kind of wife who turned every late night into a trial. Then, Celia's sponsorship inquiry appeared in the archived club thread, forwarded by Arden after I asked one careful question. Her email was polished, bright, and ugly in the cleanest way, saying Maren Whitlock is aligned with the dinner series, as if my name were a ribbon she could tie around her own ambition. She did not say I approved it. Not directly, and that was the trick. She wrote just enough for a beverage sponsor to assume I was standing behind her, while leaving herself room to act surprised if anyone asked for proof. I called Arden and kept my voice even, because anger would have made the wrong part of the conversation louder. "Did my name appear in the sponsor notes?" I asked, and the pause before his answer told me almost as much as the answer itself. "Maren, I would want to know if my name was being used this way." When the call ended, I moved Celia's email, Graham's reservations, and Arden's note into one folder marked Legal Review, because whatever they thought they were building, they had built it with my invitation code. Not love. Celia Bramwell was not confused, and the photo proved it before Graham ever opened his mouth. Her red dress was easy to notice, but the sponsor packet in front of her mattered more, tucked half beneath the wine list like she wanted it visible only to the right people. At the top was her magazine logo, Below it, a short list of prospective patrons. And beside Graham's glass was a handwritten note in her tight, slanted script. Mention Marin after dessert. That was not a woman accidentally sitting in my place. That was a woman using my name as the last line of her pitch. I had met Celia once before at a tasting event, back when I still believed ambition could be harmless if it wore good manners. She had admired my wedding ring, asked who designed it, then leaned closer and wondered how someone new in dining media could get in front of the right rooms. I remembered the phrase because she said it like a compliment, not a question, while watching Graham laugh too loudly beside the bar. At the time, I thought she wanted advice. Now I understood she had been studying the lock. Graham called again after midnight, his voice lower this time, with all the panic shaved into something he wanted me to mistake for patience. It is not what you think. Marin. It was a partnership conversation, and Celia was helping me open a tasting channel that could benefit both of us. I let him finish because liars reveal more when they think silence is agreement. Did she know that code was mine? I asked. And he did not answer the question. You make these rooms sound more sacred than they are. He breathed. And that told me exactly how little he thought my work was worth. I did not argue, because arguing would have turned proof into noise. I opened a clean email to Arden Pike and wrote that any use of my name, guest privileges, or sponsorship authority involving Graham Alder or Celia Bramwell was unauthorized. I kept the language flat, professional, and small enough to cut. Then I sent it, because the first thing I needed back was not my marriage. It was the word authorized. Graham and Celia still thought the room was theirs because nobody had raised a voice yet. That was the mistake people make when they mistake silence for delay. Instead of seeing it as a door already closing, they arrived at the Alden room for the private preview dinner with Celia dressed like the evening had been built around her, and Graham carrying that easy smile he borrowed from men who never paid for their own access. I was not there, because I did not need to stand in a doorway to prove who had opened it. Arden Pike met them at check-in with the same calm voice he used for members, donors, authors, and men who thought manners were weakness. The guest sponsorship associated with this reservation has been placed on hold, he said, and Graham laughed once. Too quick, like a man trying to turn a locked door into a joke. Celia stepped in before he could make it worse, her voice polished enough to sound expensive, saying, Marin knows us. This is probably just a clerical thing. Ardenfen did not argue with her, only placed the policy acknowledgement on the desk, and let the line about misrepresentation of sponsor authority sit between them. That was how a room changed without anyone admitting it had changed. A couple waiting behind them looked toward the bar, pretending not to hear, while the bartender stopped reaching for Graham's usual glass and waited for instruction. Celia looked down at the red dress she had chosen to win the room, and for the first time it seemed to be working against her. Private rooms do not need public humiliation when the wrong name on the wrong list can do the work cleanly. My phone buzzed while I was at home. Sitting beside the folder, Blythe Waverly had already told me to keep clean and chronological. Fix this before it gets weird. Graham wrote. Not I am sorry. Not, are you okay? Just a demand from a man who still thought my access was a household appliance. I forwarded the message to Blythe, and her reply came back with the steadiness I needed. Save it. Because he just admitted he knew the access depended on you. Then Celia called, sharp beneath the sweetness, warning that this could hurt everyone. And I answered only once before hanging up. It already did. The Alden room opened its membership ethics review without asking me to cry for it. Arden did not need a confession, only the records already sitting in the system, my guest code, Graham's reservation, Celia's sponsor language, and the private dinner category they had no authority to use. I confirmed in writing that I had never approved Celia Bramwell, never placed my name behind her magazine pitch, and never allowed Graham Alder to speak for me. Every sentence was plain enough to look harmless until you stacked it beside the next one. Blythe Waverly kept me from turning pain into noise, and that may have saved me more than any locked door ever could. In her office, she slid my draft back across the desk and said, "You do not have to make him look bad. You only have to stop making him look legitimate." So I removed every emotional word and left only the things that could breathe under review, the timestamp on the reservation, Celia's phrase aligned with the dinner series, Graham's fix this text, and Arden's warning. The statement looked cold because the evidence was cold. Celia's magazine called her in the same afternoon, and I only knew because Arden's office needed clarification on the sponsor inquiry she had sent. When asked why my name appeared without written approval, she tried to place it on Graham, saying he told her it was fine. That answer did not protect her. It proved she had accepted a husband's convenience instead of the wife's consent. And in that room, convenience was not authorization. By evening, Graham came to the apartment and found the side entrance would not open for him anymore. It was not a stunt, and it was not a midnight tantrum, because Blythe had already prepared the temporary occupancy notice based on my original lease and his documented second address. He called 3 times from downstairs, then texted that I was making this uglier than it needed to be. I saved the message without answering, because he still thought the ugliness was the locked door, not the reason he had lost the right to walk through it. Philadelphia did not turn on Graham and Celia with headlines, because rooms like that do not punish loudly. They just stop opening. Rosalie Kent removed Celia from the dining round table without an announcement, and the beverage brand that had been circling Graham's next tasting sent a polite note about shifting direction. No one wrote their names in public, but the invitation slowed first. Then the replies. Then the little warm sentences people use when they still plan to see you again. I heard about it through silence more than gossip. A chef who used to ask whether Graham would be joining me at events stopped asking, and a bookshop owner who once took Celia's calls suddenly routed everything through email. Graham had built half his charm on walking into a room and letting people assume I had brought him there, without my name near his. He was just another private broker with a nice jacket and too much confidence. Celia posted something soft and vague about protecting her peace, the kind of caption women use when they want consequence to look like growth. Rosalie saw it, never liked it, and quietly removed her from an email chain about the spring dinner preview. That was worse than an insult, because it left Celia nothing to respond to. She had wanted a public step upward, but what she got was the private math of people deciding she was not worth the risk. Graham left a voicemail 2 nights later, his voice tight enough to show me the room had finally gotten smaller around him. "You are making me look radioactive." "Marin," he said, like my name had turned dangerous instead of simply unavailable. I did not call back, because the word radioactive belonged to him now, not me. I saved the message and sent it to Blythe, who answered that it would support the clause barring him from using my name in any referral, pitch, reservation, sponsorship, or private introduction. The first peaceful moment came at a coffee shop where one of Graham's old contacts stood behind me in line. He smiled, nodded, and did not ask where my husband was. I walked out with my cup warm in my hand, realizing how much of my life had been spent answering for a man who was no longer invited into the question. The envelope waited on the hall table in the lobby, not outside my door, not under a mat, not anywhere Graham could later dress up as confusion. The concierge had seen me place it there, and Blythe Waverly had made every page dated, clean, and impossible to mistake for anger. Graham arrived in the coat he wore to tastings, the one that made him look like he belonged in rooms borrowed from me. When he saw his name on the front, his face changed before his hand touched the paper. I did not invite him upstairs because he no longer belonged inside spaces he had entered with my name. The packet held separation papers, his belongings, inventory, Blythe's contact information, and the notice barring him from using my name in referrals, pitches, reservations, sponsorships, or private introductions. He read the first page near the mailboxes, while the concierge sorted packages. And for once, Graham had no room to perform. "Celia did not mean to hurt you," he began. Then caught himself and added, "None of this was supposed to become public." That correction told me more than any apology could have. He was not grieving the marriage. He was grieving that the trick had been seen by people who understood its value. I kept my voice level because the envelope had done the work. "You were not careless, Graham. You were comfortable." By then, Celia had been offered the quiet version of a professional ending. Her magazine gave her the choice to resign privately or leave the sponsor inquiry in her record as misrepresentation. And she chose silence because silence still let her pretend she had control. Rosalie Kent removed her from the spring dinner chain without a reply, giving Celia nothing to fight. Arden Pike later confirmed my guest code had been reset. Every unauthorized link was void, and written approval was required for third-party use. Graham texted once, "I did not think you would go this far." And I answered, "That was the first honest thing you said," then blocked him before regret could ask for another room in my life. I returned to the Alden room on a night when my name was finally the one printed cleanly on the host list. Not Graham's wife. Not the quiet sponsor behind someone else's confidence. Not the woman whose code had been borrowed until it almost sounded like consent. The supper series was mine, built for women who ran bookstores, kitchens, small law practices, and independent presses without needing a man to translate their value at the door. Arden Pike greeted me with a small nod and a simple, "Welcome back, Ms. Whitlock," and those 4 words felt heavier than any apology Graham could have sent. Rosalie Kent arrived early, notebook closed, because she was not there to turn my life into a headline. She only mentioned that her newsletter would describe the series as "Women Rebuilding Professional Rooms with Better Rules." And I liked that because it did not make me sound broken. Around the table, nobody asked about Graham, and nobody said Celia's name like a warning. Their endings were already written in the spaces they no longer entered, Graham still trying to sell rare bottles to people who stopped introducing him. Celia freelancing around sponsor lists she would never touch again. Healing did not arrive like a dramatic speech or a perfect morning. It came when I ate a full dinner without checking the entrance, signed my own host agreement without someone else's hand near the pen, and heard a young attorney ask how to enter the right rooms without borrowing the wrong person. I smiled because I finally had an answer that belonged to me. Start by making sure nobody uses your name before you do. For once, the list at the entrance did not feel like a gate I had to defend, only a table I had earned. If this story felt familiar, not because of the club or the dinner, but because someone once used your patience as permission, stay here with us. Subscribe, share your thoughts below, and remember this: peace can be quiet, but it should never make you smaller for anyone standing beside you.